The concrete amplified their footsteps before I spotted them. Dim overhead lights stretched long shadows as Dalton and Pierce moved between the parking columns toward me. My hand froze on my keys. The entire level was empty except for my car and their two gleaming sedans. "Working late again, Sierra," Dalton said, his broad frame filling the space beside my driver's door. Even in a tailored suit, his former athlete's build was impossible to ignore. Pierce stepped around to my other side. "Dedication," he said softly, adjusting his watch. "That's always been your strongest quality." A cold calm settled over me despite the garage's heavy summer air. This wasn't accidental. 3 years under Dalton and Pierce at Meridian Corp had taught me exactly what their synchronized movements and practiced ease actually meant. "What do you want?" I kept my voice level. Dalton's smile disappeared. "We know what you've been doing. The safety committee, the accounting team, former employees who walked out of here quietly. You've been asking questions you have no business asking. That's called doing my job," Pierce laughed quietly. "Your job is whatever we say it is, and right now it's simple. Resign tomorrow morning, or we make sure you never work in this industry again. We've prepared a generous package," Dalton added. "Sign it, walk away." Everyone moves on. And if I don't, Pierce's smile tightened, there are things in your performance file, inconsistencies, concerns, all properly dated and signed. Nothing obvious, just enough to make future employers hesitate. He paused. "And those accounting irregularities you've been digging into. Interesting how your access code keeps appearing during those changes." My throat tightened. They had been building this for months. "Your mother's treatments," Dalton said. "Your sister's program." Be ashamed to throw all of that away. The mention of my family lit something in me. They had researched everything, every vulnerability, every pressure point, but they had missed one thing. I looked at both of them and smiled. "There's a third option you haven't thought about." Their confidence flickered for just a moment. "Your resignation letter, 9 a.m., Dalton said. Then they walked away, their footsteps fading into the structure until there was nothing left but silence. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands shaking against the wheel. 3 years of watching them manipulate numbers, claim credit for other people's work, and quietly dismantle anyone who got too close. They had brought me onto their team not for my skills, but because they needed someone expendable. Someone to absorb the consequences of decisions they had already made and were preparing to walk away from. Before I started the engine, I pulled out my phone and typed one message. They made their move. "Tomorrow, be ready. My name is Sierra Calloway. I'm 37. I've spent 15 years in corporate finance, building a reputation on precision and recall. I remember numbers after seeing them once. I remember conversations word for word." That gift made me useful. It also made me dangerous to people who assumed no one was paying attention. I joined Meridian 3 years ago. The salary allowed me to cover my mother's ongoing treatment and support my sister through her final year of graduate school. Within 6 months, I understood the real structure of the place. CEO Harmon was 18 months from retirement and more focused on his legacy than daily operations. Dalton and Pierce had filled that vacuum completely. Dalton, a former sales director, knew how to work a room, which board members to flatter, which details to remember, which charity dinners to attend. Pierce was his counterweight, analytical, credentialed, always armed with projections that made their decisions look inevitable. Together, they controlled what information reached the executive floor. Anyone who pushed back found themselves first sidelined, then gone. 8 managers left during my first year alone. I survived by being useful without appearing threatening. I delivered exceptional work and let them take the credit. I observed without commenting. I became the analyst they trusted because she never asked uncomfortable questions. Then Harmon announced Project Renewal, a sweeping cost reduction initiative in response to 3 consecutive quarters of declining revenue. Dalton and Pierce were handed extraordinary authority. They needed a financial analyst to execute the numbers. They chose me. Sierra brings exactly the technical depth this project requires, Pierce told the executive committee. And she's proven she can work independently. I accepted with the right amount of gratitude. What they actually wanted was someone they could control and eventually blame. The pattern became visible quickly. Dalton pushed cost targets that couldn't be hit without gutting safety. Pierce designed timelines that made careful analysis impossible. When I raised concerns in meetings, I was redirected. When I suggested less risky alternatives, they vanished from the official record. One morning, I pulled up the approved meeting minutes and found that every objection I had raised was gone. My alternatives had disappeared. The record showed unanimous agreement on decisions I had directly challenged. That same afternoon, I discovered maintenance logs had been altered. Inspection reports were backdated. Certification documents referenced work that had never been completed. When I brought one discrepancy to Pierce, his response was cold and immediate. "Trust the process, Sierra. Your inexperience is showing." That evening, I made a decision. I would stay. I would continue earning their trust, and I would prepare for the moment they tried to make me the story. For 6 months, I documented everything. Dates, decisions, exact language. I built relationships across the company, with the security team, with executive assistants, with IT staff. I found the people Dalton and Pierce had already hurt. Former employees now struggling, passed over, quietly pushed out. I studied their pattern. Implement dangerous shortcuts, collect bonuses tied to short-term savings, then exit before the damage became visible. The parking garage confirmed that the timeline had accelerated. The annual safety inspection was days away. An outside inspector would find what they had buried. They needed me gone, signed, and silenced before anyone started pulling threads. What they didn't know was that I had been ready for this for months. I woke at 4:30 the next morning, after barely 2 hours of sleep. I showered, dressed carefully, slate gray blazer, white blouse, the small silver bracelet my mother gave me years ago, and drove to the office before 6. The security guard at the main entrance, Marco, looked up in genuine surprise. "Miss Calloway, everything all right?" "Big day," I told him, signing in manually instead of using my card. "How's your son settling into the new school?" "Doing great, actually." That reading specialist you pointed us toward made a real difference. I had helped Marco find a specialist for his son 4 months earlier. Today that meant I had a witness who remembered exactly when I arrived and how I got in. The executive floor was empty when I stepped off the elevator at 6:20. The boardroom was unlocked, as Nadia, the CEO's executive assistant, had confirmed it would be. Nadia had been with the company for 19 years. She had watched Pierce publicly humiliate a junior colleague into resigning the previous spring. She had her own reasons for opening that door. I placed a thin folder at each seat around the table. Inside each one, my business card and nothing else. Then I sent a single message and waited. By 7:30, CEO Harmon arrived with 3 board members, Chen, Wakefield, and Priya. Behind them came General Counsel Davina and Head of Corporate Security Theo, neither of whom typically appeared at morning executive sessions. The surprise on Harmon's face confirmed they hadn't been invited by anyone else. Dalton walked in and recovered smoothly, producing his usual easy smile. "Well, this is unexpected." Pierce entered last, taking in the room with careful eyes. "What is this?" "That," said Harmon, "is what we're all here to find out." I stood. Last night, Dalton and Pierce approached me in the parking garage and demanded my resignation by 9 a.m. They threatened to falsify performance records and use my access codes to implicate me in accounting irregularities. The room went still. "That's a serious mischaracterization of a routine performance conversation," Burke said, his tone measured. "I understand my word alone isn't sufficient," I replied. "Which is why that's not what I'm presenting." I connected my laptop to the projector. The screen filled with maintenance logs, inspection records, and flagged dates. "These documents show full safety compliance. Every inspection certified, every box checked." I clicked forward. These are the original maintenance requests that were denied. These are the technicians reassigned before scheduled inspections could be completed. And these are the actual system statuses as of this week. A red and yellow flowchart filled the screen. We are one equipment failure away from a reportable incident. Anyone can build a presentation, Dalton said. The technicians are in the conference room next door, I said. You're welcome to speak with them directly. The room shifted. I distributed sealed envelopes to each person at the table. Inside was a complete timeline of project renewal. Every meeting, every decision, every risk I had raised in real time. With the official minutes, alongside my own contemporaneous notes, showing what had been removed. Divina opened hers slowly. Your objections were excluded from the official record. My signature was added to minutes I never approved. The safety inspection is scheduled for tomorrow, I continued. The inspector will identify at minimum 17 critical violations. Production stops immediately. Regulatory penalties follow. Litigation follows that. I paused. Pierce accepted a position with a competitor beginning next month. Dalton has been in conversations with 3 firms. Their project renewal bonuses are scheduled to pay out this week. Pierce's composure finally cracked. How could you possibly? The same way I know that the maintenance cost overruns have been buried in miscellaneous expense accounts. The same way I know about the incidents that were reclassified to avoid mandatory reporting. Harmon looked gray. What are you proposing? 3 things. Emergency maintenance on the critical systems before tomorrow's inspection. A 30-day extension request citing planned upgrades, which happens to be accurate. And new leadership for project renewal, with a full internal review of every decision made over the past 6 months. Dalton straightened. This is clearly a deflection. She's been struggling with the scope of this project from the beginning, and she's trying to. The technicians are still next door, I said quietly. The room went silent. Harmon looked at Chen. Chen looked at Divina. Pierce stared at the envelope in his hands. It wasn't loud. There were no dramatic confessions, no collapse. Just a slow and irreversible shift, the kind that happens when evidence outweighs positioning, and the people in the room finally understand that the story they were told doesn't match the documents. In front of them, Dalton and Pierce were placed on administrative leave before noon. The inspection extension was filed by end of day. Emergency maintenance began that evening. I stayed late to brief the interim team. When I finally walked back to my car, the garage was quiet. Same concrete, same yellow lights, but it felt different standing there, lighter somehow, or maybe just more honest. I had never wanted to burn anything down. I just refused to be the one left holding the match they had already struck.